we'll cut that. No!
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
Take 2 after an hour of filming. This time we'll roll audio.
Oh.
As a filmmaker, you felt it. Clients are negotiating lower and lower budgets with faster timelines than ever before. Agencies are slashing production costs. AI tools are replacing workflows that used to take entire teams. And meanwhile, we're all sitting in the crossfire trying to figure out, where do we fit in all of this? Some filmmakers are quietly leaving, and others are competing in a race to the bottom just to stay booked and pay the bills. And nobody really seems to know where this is all headed. Which brings us to the real question, are we watching the beginning of the end for filmmakers? Or are we living in the biggest opportunity creative businesses have ever seen? Depending how you answer that question, the next 12 months could look completely different for you. And I think most people are looking at this totally backwards. Since 2022, the creative industry has seen a massive shift in workflows, content demands, and overall expectations. Meanwhile, us filmmakers are catching strays in the crossfire, trying to figure out where we actually fit in all of this change. And it feels like the pressure's on because now you're stuck between 2 paths. Either you dig your feet into what you spent the last 5, 10, maybe 25 years learning, or you step into what feels like uncertain waters. And that's a terrifying thought. And I know, as much as we'd all like to blame AI for this, or point to companies for cutting budgets, the reality is pretty simple actually. Businesses just always choose the easiest path. Efficiency is what drives everything. Right now, filmmaking and the creative industry are going through a massive wave of new efficiencies we've never seen before. Workflows are faster, output expectations are higher, teams are smaller, and honestly, the entry point into filmmaking is lower than it's ever been before. So the question becomes, is the industry actually under too much pressure and starting to break? Or is it being forced into a new version of itself, whether we're ready for it or not? Because if that's true, then you're not just reacting to change anymore, you're choosing whether you're set up to move with it or get left behind by it. And that's where things start to get a little uncomfortable. So what does that actually mean for you, your work and your team? You need to start asking some hard questions. The main question you need to ask yourself is pretty simple. Can I accept that things have already changed and that they're not going back? Because the game has in fact changed. Social media isn't an add-on deliverable anymore. AI isn't on the rise. Those things are already here and they're not leaving. So the question isn't whether the industry is changing. It's whether you're willing to continue to create inside that change. Now, once you've accepted that, you're left with the decision. Do you believe you're going to sink in this new environment? Or do you believe you can swim in it? And honestly, those aren't just like motivational questions. They're a real question you should ask yourself. And how you answer will show up in your work, your habits, your output, your consistency. If you don't believe you can keep up, then realistically, you'll either ride out your momentum until it stops working, or you'll step away and find something new. But if you do believe you can adapt, then the only option is commitment, not hesitation, not waiting for the industry to find its footing. Just moving forward with the assumption that things will keep changing. And with this changing environment, there's been a hard truth that we've had to come to accept. It's actually already too late to become an early adopter. That phase is already closing. So where are you gonna land? Are you gonna join the early majority that's already adapting now, the late majority that's reacting later, or the straggler that moves once it's kind of just already too hard to catch up? The tricky part is this: there's no maintenance point in this industry anymore. There's not going to be a moment where the dust finally settles and you can set up shop, put it in cruise control, and just coast. If you're looking to stay booked as a filmmaker in today's market, you're signing up for constant adjustment. But that's also what makes it powerful, because once you stop waiting for stability, you realize that stability was never the goal. Adapting is the job, because the best stories are constantly changing. At Novel, we've decided we're not really interested in wasting time pretending this is easy. We're preparing to build our team for where the industry is going, not for what used to work. And that all starts with one final question. Do you actually have what it takes to stay in it for the long haul? Because if you do, the pressure you're feeling right now isn't a warning, it's the training. And like any growing athlete or competitor, It doesn't get easier. It just gets harder the better you become. Think of it this way. Imagine if Michael Jordan was working so hard, pushing to become the best, just so he could finally find his stride and coast in his games. That'd be crazy. If he wanted to grow, he knew the only path forward was going to take more and more effort. If you're finding value in this so far, consider subscribing and sharing this with a peer. I make videos around cinematography, storytelling, and the business side of filmmaking, and how those three things tend to overlap more than most people realize. Honestly, my goal is hopefully I can help you save the years it took me to learn these lessons. So, let's get back into it. You know what most people assume right now? That the creatives that are going to win in this new environment are the ones who can move the fastest, the ones who can keep up with AI workflows, pump out more content, deliver faster, cheaper, and more efficiently. That is basically a speed game now. And if that's true, then yeah, the natural conclusion is pretty depressing. Most of us filmmakers aren't built to win a speed game. But that's not actually what's happening. Because if you look at the teams that are quietly exploding right now, the small studios, the independent creatives, the lean production teams punching way above their weight class, they're not winning because they're faster. They're winning because they stopped competing on output entirely and started competing on attention. The reality is attention is the real bottleneck now. Not production, not gear, attention. And that changes the question entirely because businesses aren't struggling to find more content anymore. They're struggling to find content that actually holds attention long enough to matter. Businesses aren't looking for more output. They're looking for better outcomes, which means something subtle has shifted underneath all of this. The creatives winning right now aren't the ones matching production demands. They're the ones that are positioning themselves to answer attention scarcity. And that's where things get interesting. Because once attention becomes the bottleneck, everything else actually becomes secondary. And the work that stands out in that environment isn't the most efficient work, it's the most distinct work. So the real shift isn't that creatives are being replaced, but it's that sameness and creating average work is being filtered out. And what's left is a higher ceiling for originality than we've ever seen before. So if that's the reality of where things are heading, then the game isn't about producing more anymore. And it's not about trying to keep up with demand either. It's about something else entirely. It's about becoming the kind of creative that demand is pulled towards. Not because you're producing more, but because your work holds attention in a way that makes people want to come back. And in a world where anyone can create content, the thing that separates people now is pretty simple. Whether their work holds attention or if it gets ignored. So then the real question becomes, what actually controls where people's attention goes in the first place? Because it's not just quality, it's not just speed, and it's not even consistency. It comes down to how much control you have over a story. Because if a story is what decides what people pay attention to, then we can use that as a tool and apply it to ourselves as creatives and business owners. Ask yourself honestly, are you actually controlling the story being formed around your work? Because whether you realize it or not, that story is already forming. Your clients already have a version of you in their head, and so does your audience. What you're known for, what they expect from you, how they define you, and that version doesn't come from what you say about yourself, it comes from what they see. Your work, your portfolio, how you show up on set, and how you present yourself. All of that gets turned into a story. And once that story forms, it becomes the filter that everything else is judged through. And here's where things get, honestly, a little bit dangerous, because if you're not controlling that story, someone else is. And your story could be the thing that keeps you booked or keeps you broke. But how do you actually take control of that story? Because storytelling isn't just something you do for your clients. It's something that's already happening to you. And if you don't understand that, you'll spend years wondering, why do people see me this way when I'm trying to become something else? That's what we're breaking down next. So if you're trying to build a creative business that thrives in this new environment and not just survives it, subscribe, because we've got a lot to talk about. I'll see you in the next one.